So welcome, and thank you for being on time. We've been going through a whole lot of information over the last couple of months, and it occurred to me as I was driving home from the clinic the other day that I might have loaded in so much information that people are feeling now a little bit daunted and too much to do, and where do I start and how does this all come together? So I wanted to put today together. There's lots of slides, but you've seen them all before, on bringing all that we have been speaking about together. So if I can ask you to pop your microphones on mute, you're very welcome to stay in the video or not. It is being recorded though, so just to let you know. Where we started is basically looking at happiness and realizing that life is 10% what happens to us and a whole 90% how we react to it. So we have 90% power in how we respond to what happens in our life, which during COVID was pretty poignant. Last week, we were talking about roles, different roles that we have in our life. So in my life, think about this from your life, but in my life, I have a hubby, 3 stepkids that you can see up there. I'm mum to 2 fur babies, and I look after, with Andrew, some international students. The monkeys you can see there, well, I've chosen not to show you Eric and Bettina's face, but they're my niece and nephew that I love to bits. I'm a massage therapist, and I'm also running the clinic with my fabulous business partner, Alexis, and we do a lot of collaborating, both obviously together as well as with other professionals and other practitioners. So they're the different roles that I have in my life, or most of them. In fact, others of you will know me from places that I haven't even mentioned yet. The week before, we were looking at our values and working out what is really important to us, what is meaningful for us, what uplifts us, what fulfills and fuels us, what really gets our goat when it doesn't happen. These are the values that really are in the forefront of our life. So these 2 things, roles and values, do take a little bit of time to really get clear on. They're really important though. So I really encourage you to go through these slides and take some time. If you haven't done that in the last few sessions that we've had, take some time to reflect on what your values are, what your roles are, and what visions you have for those roles. But from there, we get to goals and outcomes, and we talked about this last week, looking at outcomes, because outcomes really inspire, uplift, and help us think bigger, rather than goals that can sometimes pressure us and feel like we're focusing on the problem and really limiting how we're viewing the world. But if we focus on outcomes and really focusing on what we want what we want our life to look like in each of these different roles that we have, that's really what I mean by outcome. What happens when we do that is that we get more opportunities, because if we are focused, as Zig Ziglar says, on problems, that's what we get more of. Who wants more problems? What we want is solutions, and what we want is where we're going in life. So we want to create more possibilities and opportunities in our life. We really want those outcomes to happen. And so if we focus on those, that's what we will get more of. And those outcomes lead us to the tiny steps. Now, this is still in that bit where it takes a little bit of time to actually get our head around. But really what happens is that if we can focus on the tiny steps that are going to support those outcomes, that's where the power is. If we can make those steps tiny enough, chunk the outcomes, the whole big picture down enough, we will almost trip over getting those tiny steps done. So as a co-founder, if I'm being courageous and solution-oriented and working with other individuals, what I need to do is find other practitioners, mentors, and therapists and share those ideas But if I break them down small enough, those still are big steps. But if I break them down small enough, what I found is that I just fall over coffees with people that are meaningful to me. I find out about coaching programs that are ideal for where my business is right now. That comes to me because I'm focusing on the right things. I don't have to go and search so much. There's so much that comes at us from Facebook and all those other social media and other email opportunities. But you will be drawn. If we allow our intuition to come to the fore, if we focus on where we want to go, that will strengthen our intuition. And rather than spending time, we will be drawn automatically to the right things that are going to support us most. This is where we get the point of asking God to grant us the serenity to accept what we can't change, but the courage also to change everything that we can change, and that wisdom to know the difference. As we come into those big rocks that really are going to be the foundations for our outcomes and our desires and our intentions that we're trying to create, and let those little rocks go by the wayside a little bit more, that will take the pressure off, clear some of those headaches, and help us to focus on what's really important, those things that are going to make the biggest difference. Remember when we were talking about the Pareto's principle, we were talking about a to-do list of maybe 10 things, and realizing that if we have 10 things on the to-do list, 2 of them are going to be what is going to make the biggest difference to our big goals, our main things in life. If we focus on those 2 things, most of the to-do list can be wiped out. You can delete it or delegate it. Deb is the most brilliant delegator I know, and she is somebody awesome who can help you to delegate the right things if you're ever looking for that sort of assistance. But if we focus on those 20%, those 2 things that are really important in our to-do list, we will see the biggest, most drastic change in our life in those outcomes. And it will help to reduce the pressure and the headaches also. Because as Tim Ferriss says, doing less meaningless work so that we can focus on the greater personal importance, it's not laziness. I can't even talk this morning. It's not laziness. As he says, this is productivity. This is the important work in life, doing the things that are going to make the biggest difference for us. We've spoken about transitions and the power of moving from one space to another, whether that be work to home, a learning space to home and family. It might be all sorts of different places. It might be within the work scenario. You might be working on some marketing, then you need to go and speak to a client. They're different headspaces. If we can take a moment to reflect, to rest, and to reset, being clear on how we want to show up, these things can just happen in a matter of moments. It can take a long time if you wanted to. If you have a whole drive from A to B in which you can do these 3 things, it can take you half an hour while you get there. That can be a really useful way to spend your driving time. It can be a 15 or 20-minute walk around the block while you are busy focusing on getting fit as well. It can be you going to the gym. It can be an hour yoga session. It just doesn't have to be. It can be 3 deep breaths as you take 1 to reflect, 1 to be still and present and rest, and 1 to focus on how you want to show up in that next space that you are moving to. It can be that quick. This is what I mean by it doesn't have to take time. It is all about our intention, focusing on our outcome, and our attitude for making sure we get there, believing in ourselves. This is where we can then step into our ability to respond, choosing how we act, possibly differently to how it's been before, certainly deliberately, so that we can focus on being above that line. A good attitude leads to great actions, leads to results that we're wanting to get, and ultimately the outcomes that we're looking for in our life. But that takes ownership, accountability, and responsibility or respondability to do. These are the steps that lead us to this above the line position. Focusing on our attitude, focusing on transitions and the power that can bring us, and focusing on our big rocks. These three things are going to make massive differences in just how we do things. It's all about how we do them, not necessarily adding more what to do, just focusing on how we do what we do, because that brings us back into control. The more things that we focus on that we have control, yes, that matter to us, but things that we can control rather than trying to work on things that we have no control over. Somebody else we have no control over. We can only control ourselves. So focusing on things that we can control lead us to a place of this second circle where we feel that we have more control. And it's feeling that we have more control that will help us have a bigger, better attitude. That brings us back to where we started in the first week, looking at happiness as a state or a filter rather than just an emotion. How we look at the world through our rose-coloured glasses, our happiness glasses or filter, means that we can focus on perception, means our attitude is in our control. By making sure that our perception, what we are choosing to focus on, is positive, is uplifting, and is supporting where we are trying to go with our outcomes, will lead us to a happy emotion. If we try and start with the happy emotion, that is hard work. It's like pushing a big rock uphill. Whereas if we start knowing that happiness is a choice, a state, a filter, and supporting that filter with positive, uplifting perceptions, focusing on what goes into our mind and making sure that that is uplifting, that becomes a cycle that fulfills itself. And we can access that much more easily if we focus on happiness being a filter. Because as Adam Fraser says, Dr. Adam Fraser, he says that happy people tend to be successful and accomplished for the simple reason that positive emotions lead to better performance and success. Just simply being happier helps us make better choices and get more of the outcomes that we want. Because what we do today can improve all of our tomorrows. So thank you for being part of our positive pajama chat today. It's so great to have you here. And I'd like very much to hear what you have to say. So please, if you dare, put on your videos and please pop on your microphone so we can have a chat.